This is Emily with Pixel Breakdown, and today I have Bryan from Sleeping Robot Games. Do you want to give an intro on yourself and about the game?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, my name is Bryan. I'm a game developer at Sleeping Robot Games, and I mainly do like programming. I also handle a lot of like the project management stuff that goes with it. And the game we're currently working on is called Smokin Potions. It's a local multiplayer party game that was kind of inspired by like the battle mode of Bomberman 64 and some other Bomberman games. And basically, the players are like wizards that like brew like exploding potions instead of bombs that also have like magical abilities and elements that you can combine. And the object of the game is just to blow up your friends and be the last person standing. And we're also working on a game development tool that I'm excited about. We're calling it Memao Sprite Sheet Creator. And Memao is basically the Discord handle of our artist. And it's a tool that basically you can create like custom characters and generate sprite sheets of those characters. And so you're like basically using a character creator to make game assets.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. That's cute that the name came from the artist. I didn't know that. Um,
Mhm.
so, how did Sleeping Robot Games come to be?
Yeah. So the name Sleeping Robot was actually the Discord handle of the other programmer of our team that started the group originally. Um, he's kind of an insomniac. He's stays up all night, does a lot of all nighters, and sleeps during the day a lot. So he kind of just got the name Sleeping Robot. And we're just kind of a group of longtime friends that have been interested in game dev, and eventually just started doing game jams together in 2020. And we would do like one or two game jams a year, something we always look forward to. And it wasn't really until last year that we got a little more serious, actually incorporated, and started making plans to like make games on Steam.
Nice. I guess you're lucky that everyone in your Discord has like cool names or names that work
Yeah,
well for things.
it's gonna happen.
So that's kind of how the team came together then? Y'all were just already friends, and then you kinda started doing game jams, and then it y'all decided to take it serious sort of thing?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I think I came in a little bit later. I think my other programmer on the team, Ross, and the artists on our team were doing some other projects and stuff for game development before I got involved. And around like 2019 or maybe 2018, I got interested in it. I joined up, and then we even like made other projects together. Like me and the artist made a couple of games together, or tried to. And then it really wasn't until like 2020 when we all kind of got together and really made an effort to just make games as a group.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, so before we talk about the game, can you give me more info on, like, the Memao Sprite Sheet? Am I saying that right? Memao.
Email, yep.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Like, what inspired the idea of it?
Yeah. And so the Sprite Creator was originally born out of like an abandoned game project that we made a long time ago. The character creator of that game was pretty detailed for like pixel art, and it was just super cool. And it just the game ended up just kind of getting abandoned. But fast forward a few years, I'm on itch.io just looking for art assets for like a prototype, and I saw sprite sheets, being for sale, and it just kind of hit me. I was like, I could use that character creator we already made to generate sprite sheets that can be customized instead of just like pre-made. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And so we actually ended up using that tech to make our own sprite sheets for just like prototypes that we were working on, and that at least would fit. And kind of got to the point where it can be a standalone tool that we just plan on publishing on itch.io. And it was just one of those things where it's like, wow, we can just use this creator we have from another game, and we can make really cool, sprite sheets.
Yeah, I think it is really cool. I think it definitely is helping to like solve one of the pain points of game dev. A lot of people are also like, oh, I'm a programmer, but I don't really know how to do like the art and animation that much. So I think a lot of people will find this tool useful, and being able to change it however you want, like step through the creation of it is yeah, I think it's just great.
Well, no, I agree. I mean, I think I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, when I was looking at HIO for art assets, it was just because I had a prototype that I just didn't want to, bring the whole team in just because I wanted to validate it myself first. And that's why I was on
Yeah.
there looking for assets that were just better than, made a little more fidelity and could see what the prototype is before, we get serious about it. And being able to have sprite sheets that are customizable would be really cool.
Yeah, no, really. Like I see this being a useful tool for a lot of developers. Um, can you walk through like how the paper doll system works in it?
Yeah, so pretty much all of our games use what's called like a paper doll system for our characters. And basically, what a paper doll system is, from my understanding, is essentially you have like a character sprite and you just break it up into pieces. So, like the head, the face, the eyes, the arms, the clothes it's wearing all just get separated out into their own sprite sheets. And then you just all lay them on top of each other, which just creates the character at that point. And so in a character creator with like 16 different customizable things, they need to be separated, and using that paper doll system is just really cool. Even our Smokin Potion games, I think there's like 6 different parts that are customizable. So when you're seeing the character run on the screen, it's actually like 6 different sprite sheets all just kind of put into one. And each direction too, they need to like have a different Z index sort. And so we have like a whole like library of like a spreadsheet of all the different sorting orders for all these different things. So having customization can be, kind of daunting and kind of
Yeah.
just pre-built. If you don't want to have like all this customization in your own game, you can use this to kind of just print out basically spreadsheets. But on top of that, we also use like a palette swap shader. So all of our sprites, pretty much for all of our games, are actually grayscale. And then we have a shader that basically takes that grayscale palette and identifies each, color, and then it just swaps the grayscale color with whatever color palette we have loaded in at that time for that character. And so it just gives us a ton of freedom for customization and colors and,
Yeah.
sprites.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good for like optimizing the way it's handled for sure. So I saw that there were animations like idle, walk, run that get generated. And you've teased like some upcoming animations like farming, battle, foraging. How do you decide which features to prioritize next?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just kind of a interest thing. So, I mean, a lot of this, obviously, all of it right now is, our artist's art, and she's most interested in, things like cozy games, farming, stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
think she has like 3 different categories. Basically, there's just a basic, animations like movement, idle, walk, run. And we're currently going through that list and getting everything generated. And then once we finish the basics, we're going to move on to just what they're most interested in, like farming, like I said, like foraging, all that kind of stuff. And then battle animations will just be last just because it's a little more time consuming, but we're going to try to make it, as broad as possible. We also want to like eventually have this maybe even be like a second tool where it'll be an artist can actually upload their own sprites and then use like the character creator to make their own NPCs using their own art. Because I know in Sprite it can be kind of daunting to be able to create a new character with all the things that you create and then all the colors and all that stuff. So kind of like taking it out of Sprite and putting it in a tool like that to be able to customize a little more easy, I think is kind of the next evolution of this once we have kind of a groundwork going.
Nice. Yeah, anything that makes game dev easier for people, I think is great. So, yeah. Uh Transitioning back to the game. How did you decide which game idea to like pursue as a team?
Yeah, it really was just kind of what game we had most fun with, not only making, but just playing in general. And Smokin Potions was one that, we came back to a few times. I think we made it in 2022 during a game jam. And over the years, took like a month maybe out of the year, and we would, just add a little bit here and there, add multiplayer, add controller support, something we'd like to just play together and have fun with. And
Yeah.
and then, last year I kind of decided where it's like by myself, like, hey, I'm learning more about game design. I'm reading some books. I want to just try to exercise the game design process. And I'm not very good at coming up with ideas myself. And so I just picked, our favorite game that we were coming back to from a game jam and decided to start improving on it, making a little more intentional designs, refactoring it. And I just worked on it, every day for a month, and just kind of seeing that momentum from me kind of drew everyone else to kind of jump back into the project. And we got a ton of momentum and decided, now is the time to just kind of strike while the iron's hot and go forward to a release on Steam.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, Game jams are really good at, it's just interesting seeing what people come up with when they have like a limited amount of time. And then also like that added like time frame. I think sometimes helps people get out of like creativity ruts almost, because you're forced to like get something out and the next thing you know it is something like really great that you're like, oh yeah, actually this can be a real game. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think game jams are pretty essential. I think, at least for us, we tried to make other projects ourselves with our own ideas and stuff, and they usually kind of just spin out of control, or we just lose steam, and we don't have an external deadline, and so it's just one of those things where it just kind of fizzles out or something. And so it wasn't until we started doing game jams to where we actually like see finished products of what we create, and it was kind of our secret sauce of being able to actually do anything and create stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, can you walk me through like the design process for the magical affinities that are in the game? Like I know there's like earth, fire, ice, arcane. Like what
Mhm.
makes each of those unique in combat?
Yeah. So um, originally, when the game was first made, it was really just the potions were bombs and that was it. And then we added in like things you can like pick up to like power up those bombs, and then ended up being like elemental based. And then we kind of started, what if you can combine them? And then we, um, went in that direction. And then eventually that was fun. But then when we came back to it last year, we were like, all right, let's try to maybe think of some more game modes or something that we can iterate through to see if we can, improve the design. And one of those came from, or one of those game modes was like an affinity or like an element mode where your character is like an earth mage or like a fire mage or wizard or whatever, and you always have access to this like fire potion alongside your like basic bomb potion. And that actually ended up being a lot more fun than just having kind of like it being like a pickup power. And it kind of, I think, let the player lean a little more heavily into like the wizard and like magic fantasy, and
Yeah.
it helps kind of balance each element into like even a play style more than just like a random power up. And so like ice, I think, is a little more of like, controlling the map and creating like elemental like hazards and like slippery surfaces and stuff. Magic, fire is also a little more damage heavy. So like it just kind of creates fireballs, and like its combinations have a lot of damage. Earth has a little bit of both. It has like some slowing effects and some damage. And then Arcane is just kind of like wild magic, where it just like creates meteors and a bunch of wacky lasers and stuff like that.
Interesting. Which one do you think is your favorite to use?
It was ice for a long time because it was really fun to, watch people slide around and
Yeah.
cause havoc. And I think kind of transitioned into fire because I really like the combinations that fire has. Like the fire and ice is really fun, and the fire and arcanes, like the meteor, is really fun. So kind of switch between those two, but I really like all of them. I mean, when we play test, I try to do each one, every time.
Actually, that leads to my next question. So there is like an element mixing system. That's like a key feature, right? Can you share more about like how the players can experiment with like different combinations?
Yeah. So you start out with you create your character, and you start out with a magic element that you choose. So like say you're like a fire mage, and then if you pick up there's basically, you break stuff in the game like rocks and crates and stuff, and they'll drop items, and the part of those items are still like the elements that you can pick up. So if you're a fire mage and you pick up an ice element, then your next magic potion is going to be a combination of fire and ice. And for example, that would be like we call it like a frost fireball, where it's like a fireball that like leaves a trail of ice. And to be
Nice.
able to experiment, so before battles, we created like a player lobby where you can kind of experiment with all the different mechanics in kind of a lower stakes environment while you're deciding on which map to battle on. It was actually born of one of our many iterations of the tutorial, but it turned into like this kind of player lobby where you can decide the map. And in the center of this map room, we actually have like a book statue that will come to life and animate if you get close to it. And then if you open it up, it'll show you all the, controls, mechanics, magic combinations, and there's like little looping videos that will play inside and to demonstrate
Oh,
everything.
cool.
So like a preview too.
Yeah, that's smart having it to where like when you're in the lobby waiting for the game to start, you can actually like mess around and or see like how things are done. I love when
Mhm.
games include that. Um, so what was like the thought process behind incorporating the ghost mechanics? Like after players are dead, they're still able to like influence the game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think like to me, having like a comeback moment in any like competitive game or game, always feels really good. And so this game is really chaotic and it's pretty
Yeah.
easy to die and like kill yourself with another bomb. And so I feel like letting the player, keep playing kind of gives them the opportunity to just have that comeback moment. So that's really important to the design. And obviously, it was part of Bomberman and Bomberman 64, where we drew a lot of inspiration from. So it was something that, it's one of those things where if you end up accidentally blowing up from your own bomb or someone else's, then you still are engaged and you can still, have that comeback and, cause chaos with your friends and stuff like that. So it's fun.
I love that. I No one likes to sit and watch the game, and so it does feel like a good full on like party game. And then yeah, like streamability is something I always talk about, and that's definitely one of the things that I think helps keep like a stream of a game interesting is when people die, they're still able to do stuff. So yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, I can see that creating some like really funny situations. um, can you describe how the Scrolls of Chaos impacts gameplay?
Yeah. So the scrolls are another one of those items that you can pick up. They're basically, they could be like a curse or a power up. They can also like trigger like events that happen on the map. Um, so for example, like for like an event that happens on the map, we call it like a potion party where like potions will start falling from the top of the map and just random potions will drop down and explode and it'll happen for a limited amount of time. Some of these potions will, or some of these scrolls will like, you'll get one and it'll like cause you to keep getting stunned for a limited time. And you can also, go up to another player and if you touch them, it transfers that scroll effect to them. And so if you get something you don't like, you can, give it to someone
Oh, that's
else or
nice.
some of them will make you huge, some of them make you tiny and fast. So there's a lot of it's kind of like the wild card basically in the game.
Yeah, this seems like such a good party game. Yeah. So like what's your favorite power up or effect?
Yeah, so I think my favorite one is one we call like symmetrical potions. And so where you pick up the scroll and then for a limited time, whenever you drop a potion down, it will generate three other potions in the map, kind of in a symmetrical, pattern. Because all of our maps are kind of in a, 2x2 grid. That comes back to where we made it originally in the game jam. I think the game jam theme at the time was symmetrical. And so in the first iteration of this game, to kind of apply that theme for the game jam, we made every potion symmetrical. So every time you dropped a potion, three more would spawn in the respective quadrants. And that ended
Chaos.
up being not as fun because it's a lot going on. And so we ended up just taking that out of the game, but putting it back in as a scroll effect. And I think that's it's a cool thing to do and kind of reminds you about, the origin of the game. And it's really fun too when you get an ice potion and you just drop, a ton of them all over the map, and then the whole map just kind of turns into an ice skating rink for a little bit
Oh
of
yeah.
time. So
Yeah, I think I'm drawn to the ice. The idea of everything getting a little extra chaotic.
mhm.
Watching people slide around is funny. Uh So I do also think it's cool that you have that in there as like a little nod to the beginnings of the game too. Like that's a fun little tidbit. Um, what would you say has been like the most challenging aspect of balancing the potion bomb combat and the different affinities?
Yeah, I think the most challenging part is just making sure they're all fun. You know, I think in the beginning of the game, like I know fire and ice was not fun. It ended up, I think we were thinking too literally, and we made like it just kind of be like a steam or smoke cloud that just kind of shrouded that area, which was kind of a letdown. Definitely didn't add to like the chaotic of our game, and so it wasn't a fun combination to find. And so that was really hard. It took a long time to go through each one of these combinations and not only have it kind of like I don't know make sense, but also have it fun and testing it and making sure that it's fun. And I think we're in a pretty good place now. It definitely took a lot, but that was definitely the most challenging, just making sure they're all fun and, balanced. And I think the balancing just kind of came naturally. We didn't really honestly put that much intention into like all these different combinations. It just kind of took, just kind of a process of iteration and play testing, and it kind of just balanced itself out.
It sounds like playtesting was key in that then. Um, definitely. And then when you're like playtesting it, do you focus on like anytime you would add in like a new bomb, would you like playtest for that like specific one, or how would you guys handle that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we do have like computer players that we've programmed to play. So it's not, you can play by yourself. Admittedly, the bots aren't that good. Recently, they did get a lot better. We implemented some like pathing algorithms and a lot. We're making them smarter. But during the development, it's not as fun to kind of just play test by yourself. And so we would
Yeah.
have to kind of schedule, kind of just once a week basically to be able to get together. And we kind of have like a list basically. I made a list in our Trello cards of like what we need to at least look at of what changed and what kind of to focus on, and kind of have a retroactive like look back after we're done playtesting to see like what needs to be changed or what went well. I was reading one of my game design books, The Art of Game Design, and it's kind of like a skill that they talk about where it's like holographic play testing or something. I forget what it's called. I know it's the word holographics in there, but basically it's being able to play your game, but also at the exact same time being able to like analyze the game design components, but not overthink it and still have fun at the same time. So you have to like play both parts of the player and the designer, and it takes
Yeah.
practice. So one of those things that we're always kind of practicing on, and sometimes we're just having fun, and then we have to kind of think back. But sometimes we're being intentional about it in the moment too.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And yeah, having to separate yourself so you are registering it as a player would who's just seeing it for the first time. And then versus like your designer brain. Um, and then also try and not like if you lose a lot, maybe you're just bad at it. maybe it's not
Yeah.
maybe it's not like a design issue, it might be a skill issue. Yeah. So what led you guys to like focus on local multiplayer instead of like traditional online matchmaking?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, local multiplayer just by itself technically is a little bit easier to implement in our experience. But I also think it lends itself better to like the design of the game itself, because this is a party game. It's it's one of those games you just should be playing with your friends, just like
Yeah.
Bomberman was. And so, I mean, ideally, I think the game itself is best played, on the TV where everyone's in the same room. But I think with things like Steam Remote Play Together, you can still play online with your friends. And so it kind of just made online multiplayer not as necessary. Like I said, the whole game is all on one screen. So there isn't like an advantage to have it, two different clients playing on the same screen. Um, I actually messaged, there was another game during Next Fest that was another Bomberman like game. And I joined their Discord and I messaged the creator on that, kind of to see how he was doing. We kind of, shared information, and looking at each other's games. And he actually went the route of online multiplayer, and he even made it to where you can, it's actually like a web game as well, and that he wants to integrate it inside a Discord. So he's like going full in on the
Oh, wow.
online. So that was really cool to see. I think his game's called Nitro Knots. So if you want to look that up, it's pretty cool. I think it's, yeah, just kind of supporting some other game devs. I know he was a cool guy to talk to, and he gave us some good insights. So yeah, it's a kind of a contrast of like super highly online, where he wants to even put it on the web and Discord and keep it like, I think his game also is like up to 6 players instead of the standard 4.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, just different design choices and just different gameplay.
I think you're right. I think it is, there's something nice about being in the same room with everyone, and being able to like talk shit while you're like doing this stuff. It just seems, I already like have in mind people I want to like get in a room and play this game. So yeah, I think it's a good choice. But it is nice that the option is out there to do, a play together online. Um, how have you structured your playtesting prior to launch?
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, we try to get together at least once a week to play as just a team. And we usually play 1-2 hours at a time and then kind of talk about it and, retro it after the fact. And we do that, as much as we can just to keep iterating it, as quickly as possible of the stuff we did the previous week. And then decide together, what to change, what to get rid of, stuff like that. As far as playtesting with other people, we've tried to find playtesters on like social media, like Blue Sky and like gaming discords. We definitely still have some more work to do, and I think once this next iteration of our tutorial is done, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we do plan on hosting like a Steam playtest to get feedback to make sure it's the right fit. We also have like I created like a Google form with like a feedback form, and I made the QR code like in the game, so that way people can like scan it and go right to the
Oh, that's
right to the
nice.
Google. Yeah, so we're doing our best, but I mean, definitely want more play testers. So if you're watching, definitely look us up, and hopefully we can get you to play test our game as well.
So you haven't had any like real outside playtesting yet? It's been mostly your weekly developer playtesting, or?
I mean, I have the game on my Steam Deck, so I mean, I bring that everywhere, and I've definitely invited a bunch of friends over. I take it, if I go to like my family's house or if I go anywhere, I'll definitely like force people to put a controller in their hand and play my game.
Yeah.
I've also, I've tried to, go to events and stuff like that, so it's definitely not easy. And you want to try to do obviously, your target audience and stuff, but it's a learning curve for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Um, what have been some of your like favorite emergent moments that have happened either during your local playtesting or when you've like forced it into someone's hands?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the most interesting and the most fun I've had playing testing was so there was a small like convention. It was outdoor even at this like at one of our city's public libraries. Kind of like it's like a mini Comic-Con for the city. It
Nice.
was just one day. There was a lot of people there though. I mean, it was a pretty packed event, and it was IGDA, where it's like the International Game Developers Association of like where I'm at in Arizona, the Phoenix chapter. I got in their Discord, and I've been to a few of their events. And one of the guys there, one of the game developers, got a booth at this kind of mini Comic-Con place, and he invited any game developers that wanted to join him. So there was like 4 or 5 of us in this booth, and I set up my Steam Deck, had my monitor. It was kind of outside, so there was a little bit of a glare, but we got, a power strip. We got all this stuff set up. I had like flyers and stuff. It was really cool to just kind of get people to, as they're walking around, convince them to play your game. So that was really fun. I
Yeah.
got to kind of see people play our game in real time, and, in real life, real time, and kind of see how they reacted to it and see what they were confused on, what they really enjoyed. And there was this one kid that was really captured by our game. Like he probably spent like 45 minutes playing, and our rounds only take like 5 minutes to play. And so He was there for a while, and he ended up like teaching other kids that came up how to play, and he was really into like experimenting with all the different magic combinations. And so just kind of seeing this random kid just kind of fall in love with our game in real time was definitely a lot of extremely rewarding, and it was just a good confidence booster that we're kind of been going in the right direction. And that
Yeah.
was best part of that.
That sounds great getting to experience that as like an indie dev. That's kind of like the dream, right? You hope to see someone fall in love with your game.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it was a really cool event. I had a wizard hat on that kind of looked like
oh, cool.
Gandalf, and I didn't have a voice afterwards. It was like 6 hours of me just explaining the game over and over again and telling people how to play, and it was a lot of fun.
I think it's good too. Like the in-person playtesting is invaluable because a lot of times people can't like something will feel wrong to the player, but they can't like verbalize what it is, or like
Mm.
they seem they'll get confused by something but won't really catch that they're getting confused, but then being able to see their like visual cues and like their facial expressions and see what's going on during that is cool. um
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got a wide array of people too. There were people that they didn't even know like how to hold the controller right. Like they didn't even know which buttons were what, and to people that were like, obviously really experienced and, understood it really quickly. So there was a huge wide array of people that played.
it seems like a really good game to just hop in and like, yeah, crazy fun situations just occur, which I think is like great for like, yeah, random people just hopping in and getting to get right into it. I will definitely be also looking for like people streaming this game because it just seems like it has a lot of like really funny situations that occur, from all the like different elements and that like competitive play style. Like, I don't know. I think it's good. Um,
I think that's definitely my goal as far as like marketing too, where, I think my biggest fear is that someone's going to pick up the game and then not quite understand it or not understand it enough to have that kind of fun. And so the tutorial in the first like 5 minutes of the game, is super important to me. And I feel like that's, we're on like our fifth iteration of like, how can we make sure that people pick up this game and know how to play it, even if they're, playing it for the first time in multiplayer. So super important. And it's something we're still working on and getting feedback with.
It does seem, and I know this isn't what you want to hear whenever you're focusing on the tutorial, but like it does seem like one of those games that you'll enjoy learning even if you lose a few rounds, and then like you learn as you're going. Cause again, like the chaos and like the things going on, and then you might see like someone do a certain thing where you're like, I want to do that. Like, how do
Mhm.
I do that? And like, I don't think, I think it maybe it's just like the game in itself like lends itself to like that sort of learning very well, but I can see also where it's like you want that tutorial to teach people. I think anytime there's multiplayer games, and since it is like you're they're all in the same room, right? Like probably learning all together. uh you don't have to take this advice, but I do think like competitions or things like that are really good if you can like blend the two into like uh I don't know. I did well. That maybe that's just me because I get really competitive, and so
Yeah.
it's like if the tutorial is like a competition, I'll learn the best. Like I'm a
Yeah, no,
toxic player.
yeah, no, I mean, I can relate, and I think that's a really good feedback. I think right now our current generation is just kind of teach them kind of all at once and kind of this like what I don't know, quote unquote classroom setting, but only teach us the very basics of like, hey, listen, like the main point of the game is to be the last person standing, drop a potion, kick it, stun somebody, and then during the tutorial, we want them to, battle each other and then teach them just about the magic stuff and then let them go. So we're trying to keep it as lean as possible, but enough to
Yeah.
where they'll have fun right away.
I think it will be cool too seeing people randomly put potions together that make like really epic things and they don't even realize it. Like I don't know, it's such
Very
a
cool.
fun game, I think. Even watching people learn it I think will be interesting, or learning while they're playing. Um have you seen like any specific strategies used by players that have surprised you?
I think one of the more, um, I don't know, prone to surprising elements is like I think it's a ground or earth and Arcane where it creates like a gravity well. So it kind of leans on like the physics of the engine to if you kick a potion, it'll kind of like treat it as a gravity well to where it kind of like slingshot a potion or changes trajectory a little bit. And
That's
there
so
can be
cool.
some fun. Yeah, there can be some fun elements when the gravity well comes into play with things like that. Um, I think it's fun too because obviously like kicking a potion, kind of like in Bomberman, is the best way to do it, and it stuns the player when it gets hit. And so you can also pick up these potions and throw them. And so if you time it just right, you can actually like pick up a potion that's like barreling towards you at the right moment, and then you can kind of throw it back or do whatever you need to do with it. So that's been kind of a
Epic.
oh wow, I didn't even know as the game developer that we put that in there to where you did the right timing. That's cool. So we're definitely keeping that in.
Yeah, that sounds like a pro gamer move for sure.
Mhm.
And yeah, the gravity well, that's exactly the type of thing where it would be just so funny seeing someone accidentally make a gravity well. Like it's just such a fun, charming game. um, I do want to ask though about like your development stuff. Like, what game engine do you develop in, and is there a particular reason why you ended up using that one?
Yeah, so we use Godot. Um, it's definitely the engine we have the most experience in with, and we love using it. I tried learning Unity when I first got interested into game dev, a while ago, and as a beginner, it just kind of got a little too cumbersome, and I just couldn't really get a handle on it. And so I just looked for alternatives, found Godot. I think I bought a book called like Teach Yourself Godot in 24 Hours. I did some Udemy courses and then convinced everyone else to jump to Godot from Unity. And it's been really fun. We haven't looked back, and I think we really love that it's open source, and the community is like constantly improving it. And I also really like that it's like totally cross-platform. It's kind of funny. Like I really like working on a Mac, and the other developer likes working on a Linux, and then the artist and the sound designer use Windows, and we can all collaborate using Go, and there's no issues whatsoever. So I like that it's cross-platform as well.
Noted. That's really cool. I've never used Godot, but you're definitely tempting. like,
Yeah,
um,
and it exports to all the different operating systems pretty seamlessly. So I think the only drawback is if you wanted to make like a console game, since it's open source, there's some definitely some barriers. It's
oh,
possible,
okay,
but
yeah.
it's not quite seamless. But just to get up and running and kind of it does everything you want to for sure. At least for 2D games, I know the 3D is definitely getting a lot better too. Yeah, definitely recommend it.
So is that one that you guys used during like game jams a lot or oh, okay.
Yeah, we actually our game jam we normally would do. It's called the Godot Wild Jam, and so everybody in the game jam is using Godot.
Oh, cool.
It's and Godot. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Unity, but in Godot, I mean, Godot itself is like 50 megabytes, so it's super tiny, and so it's really fast loading in and all that stuff. And it's actually made with Godot, so like it's using like itself to like create itself, and so that leads into like really if you want to make like a plugin or anything like that, it
Right.
makes it cool to do that as well. So it's definitely a cool program.
No, it sounds cool. They should be paying you. I think you're selling me on it. um, let's see. I do want to shift now to like development process and challenges. So like as an indie team, what were your biggest challenges like that you faced during game development?
Yeah, I think just staying motivated and just learning all the different aspects that it takes to just release a game on Steam with like any amount of success. I think it's one thing to just kind of have fun making games with your friends during like game jams or if you have like a personal project. But once you decide to like release on Steam and try to get people to like pay for your game is like a whole different set of challenges that open up. And I think in this process of releasing our first game on Steam, I've realized that we're kind of stepping into like an entire like business model and like ecosystem that you don't really see until you start doing it yourself. And I was actually thinking about it, um, because when we made this game, obviously we had no idea about, how Steam works and all that kind of stuff with, the business model that is like a small indie team, marketing on Steam. So I feel like it's similar to like doing like a raid boss encounter in a game. So like I'm a big fan of like World of Warcraft and like Destiny 2 and stuff. And so in those games, you can do all the research you want. You can watch the videos, you can read the guides, but until you like step foot in front of that raid boss or like start the encounter and then get killed by the mechanics, you're not really going to truly understand, how to do it. And so
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think I've ever walked into like a raid encounter and then, been able to do it the first try with a brand new team. So like I kind of keep that mindset of like it's kind of our like Steam release speed run where we're just kind of learning all the things with it, and we're just trying to keep that mindset because I feel like the conventional wisdom is your first game is not really expected to do that well. So I mean, just trying to keep that mindset, and no matter how many hours we spend on it, it's still a fun game for us. We really have a lot of fun playing it, so I think that counts for a lot. But just the huge biggest challenge is just realizing and kind of figuring out what this business model actually looks like, and keeping everything in mind for the next time we make a game. Keeping all that stuff in mind from the very beginning.
That's a charming way of looking at it. Like it's like a boss that you're all beating together, or um, yeah, just the random steps of releasing the game. Um, I think your game has like a lot of the key components for like what I think a successful game has. So I'm I'm thinking it will be a good first release. But yeah, knock on wood. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean that's obviously the hope. But I mean, like I said, it's just one of those things where we just haven't really done this before, and there's a lot to learn, and um, we're just kind of doing it as fast as we can. I think that's part of another challenge is like iterating as quickly as possible. Not getting married to an idea and then sticking with it, even though it maybe not is not working or whatever. So I think
right.
all the books you read and stuff, it's always about iterating that design, loop as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, breaking it, realizing it's not fun, and then, just going through that over and over again until it is.
Um, what was like the most unexpected obstacle that you encountered during development?
I feel like there's a few things. So, as far as development itself, I feel like the multiplayer aspect was definitely, even though it's not a network, there's still like controller support for like user interface. So like Godot has like built-in user interface for controller, and actually pretty easy to use. But only one element can be focused at a time. And so when you have four people accessing four different elements at the same time on the user interface, we realized we had to make our own for at least a few screens. And there's a lot of edge cases and a lot of nightmare scenarios that come up
Right.
that you wouldn't think, is hard, but it definitely turned in kind of a nightmare. I think also Steam, there's a lot of issues with Steam as far as like getting it uploaded and, being, playable, and like Steam Remote Play had its own weird quirks where, certain controllers weren't working, or, if you use
Mm,
like Steam Input has its own like ecosystem you have to like accommodate to. And there's a Steam API and stuff. And so that was a little weird. I mean, my day job is a mobile software engineer. So I work on like mobile apps. And so like working with like Apple and Google to release mobile apps, I guess I didn't realize, but like Steam is basically the same thing where, there's a lot of things you have to, worry about in that platform. And like just uploading the game to the Steam library, there's like there's files and like upload, like there's a Steam like command line you have to do. And we had like this weird bug where every time we'd upload, it like wouldn't upload to the right branch. It thought it was like we were trying to use like our own server to host, and we obviously weren't. And so there's a weird like bug in
oh
Steam, so I had to go
no.
to support. Yeah, it was just kind of a nightmare. I was like, wow, this is not as easy as I thought it would be.
Yeah, especially when you're doing it indie, because I remember with my first game too, when I was trying to get it up on like Apple's like App Store, and it was like when something's going wrong, it was like, is it me or is it actually like a bug? I can't tell, right? Like,
Yeah, that's exactly. I thought I was like going crazy. I was like,
yeah,
this everything I'm reading says this should work, but it's just not. And I just had to wait for Steam to reply, and eventually they got their command line stuff updated, and I haven't had issues since. Now that I'm more experienced with it, but yeah, starting out, it was definitely a learning curve that I wasn't expecting.
yeah. It's one of those like you have to go through it to learn. I feel like the
Yeah.
documentation alone does not prepare. Um,
Mhm.
uh, Were there any like features or mechanics that were scrapped because they just did not translate well into the local multiplayer or for people playing?
Yeah, I think, some of the things we were thinking about, like for like level design was like, um, I don't know, like platforms and different platforms on different like levels. Maybe you go up like stairs and there's things like that. But it was like, this is a 2D game and the graphics and the physics of the potions, they have no concept of like height and all these things that we were like, you know what? Let's focus on other things to make those, extra fun and not like try to, you know, do these like strange level like ideas that we were having and just kind of keeping it a little more tuned and also think just like tutorial in general is just super hard. Like I said, you don't want to make it boring. I feel like even the word tutorial, I feel like it's kind of triggering where it's like I don't like as a gamer, like I've kind of have like I'm allergic to tutorials. Like I feel like I can
Right.
just figure it out. I want to like sit through a tutorial, and so even the word is like, oh, get away from that. And so being able to introduce mechanics in like a natural way, but also in like a multiplayer environment is like I said, we've done it like 4 different tries of like, you know what, this isn't fun. Even though we spent a week on it, scrap it all and start over. So that's uh that's been interesting. So as far as like multiplayer, yeah, it's hard.
At least you don't fall into the pitfall of like, well, we've invested so much time in this, don't scrap it. Because I think that's why you probably end up with like a great game because you're like, this doesn't work or we're not actually having fun with this. And let's find something that is actually fun. Um,
Yeah, no, we had our first iteration of the tutorial. I mean, we had like a dialogue script. We had like 3 different levels of like all these different things of like a whole mapped out. And we're like, this isn't fun. Let's put it like go behind the barn, put it out of its misery. Like, I mean, we tried to salvage. There was some things we salvaged from it, like the dialogue system, and there's other like small components that we like kept and we can reuse. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not fun to just delete whole files and be like, oh
yeah.
well, it'll be there in the version control if we ever need it back, I guess.
Um, I guess one of the like last real questions I have is like, what's one thing that you hope players take away from their experience, like playing your game?
Yeah, I think just it's pretty simple, and I think you're just kind of embracing the chaos and just having fun with your friends. Being able to boot it up and play a few rounds with your friends and trash talk and have a good time and you know laugh at all the crazy stuff that goes on. That's the goal.
Yeah, I envision all of that when I hear about your game. So, yes. um I guess okay, so I just have two like short form questions for you. So if you had 30 seconds to give someone advice on how to make a game like yours, what would that be?
Yeah, so if you're making a local multiplayer focused game, know that it's going to be an uphill battle. I think iterating goes slower due to like just requiring multiple people to play a test and play it. And marketing is going to be a challenge since it's kind of a difficult niche on Steam, I've realized. And so just make sure that it's a game that you really enjoy playing. because you're going to be playing it a lot. And I think the most important thing is to make sure the game design really excels in the intended like venue. So meaning, get your Steam Deck or your laptop, hook it up to your TV, invite your friends over, sit on the couch and like play your game in person. So that way you're sure that it's like truly will shine as a local, multiplayer game.
Yeah, that all sounds like sound advice. Might have been a little more than 30 seconds, but I'll accept it because it does sound like good advice.
Yeah, but we'll see.
uh, and then my last question is, can you summarize the game dev experience in 3 words?
Yes, I posted this question to our Discord and on Blue Sky, and I kind of got some meme responses like, "Oh God, marketing," or like, "No sleep ever."
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah, I think our artist put it best. She put engrossing, demanding, and fulfilling.
That's a legit answer. And yes, I agree. They sound very wise.
Yes.
So that's all the questions that I had for you. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your game. I really do think it's going to be a fun one that I look forward to playing with people.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun. I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing what comes next.
Also, the same with your tool. That's really cool. And I bet there's going to be some really cool games that get made with that. So that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited about it as well.
I'll have links to everything down below so people can follow you and check out your stuff. So, yeah, again, thank you.